This lady disappeared after a night out in 2012, and her killer wasn't brought to justice until 12 years later. Oh, hi there, stranger. As part of my Walk for Refuge month, today I'm going to be telling you about the case of Claire Holland. Viewer discretion, as always, is advised. Claire Holland was 32 years old when she disappeared. It would take 12 years of serious work by the police to bring her killer to justice. This is her story. Claire was working in a cafe in Bristol in 2008 when she bonded with the cook, Darren Osmond. The pair started a relationship and had their child together in 2010. The birth of a baby can, of course, place a lot of strain on a relationship, even a healthy relationship, but I do think it's fair to say that this was not that at all. Darren was a spiteful, controlling and abusive man. Social services became involved with the family very quickly, just months after the birth of their son, and they would eventually take the baby into the care of the local authority. Darren placed the blame solely at Claire's feet for this happening. He was, of course, wrong to do that, but he held her entirely responsible. And he was vicious to her, spitting at her, degrading and humiliating her, beating her, one time to such an extent that he caused her to fall down the flight of stairs. And the relationship came to an end, but as in many cases, ties were not completely severed. A controlling man is at his most dangerous when he feels that he is losing that control. On the 5th of June 2012, there were 2 phone calls between Claire and Darren, and she told friends that she had plans to meet up with him the next night. Darren was working as a chef in a pub at the time, and so Claire went to that pub, spending her evening there. CCTV shows her having a drink and socialising, enjoying herself. She left the pub shortly after closing time, and that was the last time she was ever seen. Not a single trace of Claire has ever been found since that night. No phone records, no social media activity, no bank activity, nothing. Police extensively checked borders and flight information over the years for any sign of Claire, and still nothing. It's like she disappeared and no trace of her at all was left behind. Now, police have to do extensive inquiries, of course. With no body, it's much harder to prove that a murder's even been committed, and so they do what they call proof of life checks. Basically, there would be some trace of her if she were alive. So even though technically they couldn't prove that Claire was deceased, after enough time with no proof of life, it is a reasonable and logical and, more importantly, lawful conclusion to come to. Their investigations in the early days turned up no leads, and so time wore on, which must have just been so incredibly difficult for Claire's family. The not knowing, I can't imagine. It must drive you insane. You know, it's easy as an outsider to say after so much time has gone on that, you know, it's obvious that Claire's gone. But as a loved one, as a family member, how would you ever give up hope? How could you ever give up hope without knowing for sure? I just feel for them so much. But even with the passage of time, information and evidence was starting to build behind the scenes. Just 2 years after her disappearance, Darren told a co-worker that he was furious at Claire for, quote, keeping me away from my boy, and that he strangled her to death and got rid of her remains in Bristol. 4 years after that, in 2018, Darren said that he'd paid someone £500 to take Claire's life. Then in 2019, Darren called 999, seemingly drunk and wanting to hand himself in. During the course of that call, Darren said he blamed Claire for their son going into care, and so he'd had her killed. And I know, strangers, you must be thinking, well, why haven't they arrested him yet? Well, they did after that 999 call, but he was released pending further investigation. As we've said before, this gives them time to gather evidence. It is frustrating, but necessary at times. And also, it's ultimately up to CPS what charges can be brought, and I just don't think they had enough evidence. And so, Avon and Somerset Police did their big one, and they set up a whole undercover operation. They sent a very brave officer undercover for 20 months, pretending to first be a business partner to Darren, and then a friend. And Darren, as you've probably guessed by now, stranger, liked to talk. He first gave snippets of information and then an outright confession, basically. He told the undercover officer that he had strangled Claire and then used his quote, knife skills to cut open her torso before disposing of her remains at Avonmouth Docks. He was ultimately convicted of Claire's murder in December 2023 and sentenced to life in prison with a minimum term of 20 years. He was 41 years old at the time of sentencing and will be eligible for parole in the year 2044. Despite extensive searches and efforts, Claire's body has never been recovered. And strangers, it's my belief that we should implement a new clause in the law for murder sentences. No body, no parole, no matter what. If they don't disclose the location of the body, or the body is never able to be recovered because of what they did, they should never be free. But that's just my personal opinion. As always, please let me know what yours is in the comments. And as I've said previously, I'm dedicating the month of October to the charity Refuge. You can find the link to my fundraiser in my bio. If you are able to support, please do so. And if not, then maybe just give this video a like, share and all the stuff, and we can raise awareness together instead. And as always, strangers, if you've stayed with me up until now, then thank you for watching.